like I didn't
Your
have money.
competitors, just go on.
Yeah, but I want to tell him that I was or her, that I was the least endowed in 2007. Actually, they used to make a joke that I was campaigning with a bicycle and made it to parliament because of trust that the people had in me. Late capitation to schools, this is all about availability of revenue. We must make money available and pay capitation, pay pensions, pay CDF. Remember, we have rolled over 13 billion from last year's NGCDF. I personally, Mr. Speaker, am a proponent of National Government Constituency Development Fund. I support it fully because this is money that has revolutionized education in rural areas. You go to my constituency, the constituency I've represented for 15 years. Before CDF, we didn't even have primary schools. They were there by name, but there were no classrooms. Right now, you can see what it has done, and many others. Contracting, breaking public, the contracts, that I started by saying we must be transparent and communicate what we do as a country. Housing levy, I don't want to really talk a lot about this housing levy because I still need to understand how it is operationalized, where the money is resident, and all the challenges around it we must deal with, because it is my duty, if I'm confirmed, it is my duty to make sure that this money is properly accounted for. Promoting informal sector, I think I talked about that. Yes, in terms of wage bill contributed by the Constitution, that is true. Mr. Speaker, this Constitution is too expensive. I know the counties had been given, but Mr. Speaker, truth be told, we should have had these counties as agents of devolution for development, but not government. We should have had bigger governments. Where you have now, you go to Vihiga, Mr. Speaker, it's a county with governor, deputy governor, you have CCs, 10 of them, you have county assembly, you go to Busia,
chief officers,
is the same, chief officer, all that. You go to
sub-county administrators,
yeah, and
ward administrators, village administrators.
You name it.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, there is even a clamor, very outrageous, for more counties. My Suba community want a county. I'm even asking, is it viable?
Mary wants a county.
Mary is calling for the Teso county. Let us face it. If we could have a system where we have regional governments, and then now devolve resources you can devolve as much as you want. Look, we have devolved CDF with a fund manager there with a very few skeleton staff, and it is working. We could do the same with the devolving resources. That is what Kenyans wanted. But these big governments with big cars, with flags all over the place, I think we overstretched ourselves. But that is upon Kenyans to decide. It is not John Mbadi, either as a cabinet secretary or even a member of parliament, to decide for Kenyans. Kenyans will make that decision.
Thank you, John. I'll ask you two questions. One, we were told by one of your colleague nominees that in the road sector alone, we have pending bills of 166 billion.
Yes.
Out of which 92 is actual debt or bills, and the rest is interest and penalties. Yeah. Now, in the event you get this position you are looking for, would you take time to negotiate with the people you owed the money to compromise on interest and penalties so that you reduce the weight on the exchequer? Number two, the PFM Act is very clear, and we passed it in this parliament, that no procuring agent can procure goods and services unless there's an attendant budget and funds. How are you going to ensure that this is enforced so that we don't run into these problems of pending bills? Because if you have an attendant budget, you procure goods and services, on delivery or completion, you pay. What are you going to do?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to agree that we will have to negotiate the interests and penalties that have been charged on various contracts. I am aware of that bill by the ministry. That is actually State Department for Roads. If you go to our records in Parliament, Public Accounts Committee had requested the Ministry of Roads to provide information on pending bills, analyzed, categorized in terms of principal sum, interest and penalties. And we have that information in Parliament. I'm sure my colleagues will submit a report to the effect. We actually were recommending that